NBA All-Star Weekend is painfully boring.
In 30 seconds, the NBA is going to cut to commercials.
I know that's far from a hot take, as many fans for years now have gotten a little tired of watching what is basically just a higher paid Globetrotters game every year. And because of this, the overall product has started to feel very stale. This isn't something that's just exclusive to the NBA. The NHL and NFL have both faced similar criticisms when it comes to the actual interest of the game or the entire event in general, with the games in each league lacking any competitive nature. But the issue with the NBA is larger than just the actual All-Star game itself. Aside from the Rising Stars game, you can almost feel the lack of interest from the players from Friday all the way till Sunday night. And that just doesn't feel right. Immediately, the reaction most fans have is to instantly blame the players for, quote, not trying. But to be fair, it's not really their fault. The product of All-Star Weekend is flawed. And until the NBA cleans up those issues, there won't be an environment where any of these players are actually able to shine in ways that makes this weekend any more interesting. So I'm gonna break down every issue that I see with the current format and what the league can do to improve on that.
We should just have McClung do 5 dunks. And then we call it a wrap. And we leave.
What do you think of the new format, Trey? Did you like that?
No, I didn't like it at all, to be honest with you. I don't know what the fans' reaction is yet and things like that, but I think it's like too many breaks, you know what I'm saying?
Time to get the people what they want. SGA, get the ball, do work, clear it out. Do what you do. You wore the mustard color sneakers.
Starting off with the skills competition, and honestly, in my opinion, this event isn't even salvageable. The relay route is something that most, if not every single fan, would be able to do in relatively the same amount of time. There's nothing really skillful about it. It's all just things that every NBA player should be able to do with ease. The opinion that I have around changing this event isn't really something new or groundbreaking, but I think a better substitution for the skills competition would be a one-on-one style tournament. Obviously, this idea has been floated around a bunch, with it even gaining traction amongst actual NBA players, and is obviously a fan favorite idea. However, there's the argument that superstars like your LeBrons and your KDs wouldn't step up for the same reasons that most stars don't participate in the dunk contest. But players like Cam Reddish are a perfect example of why you do not need stars for this event to work. NBA players are better than 99.9% of every other basketball player on this planet. Sometimes fans forget that fact. So not having superstars in this event could actually be a benefit, so you can showcase some of the underappreciated talent, as the skills for a 1v1 tournament is something that almost all NBA players have, unlike the skills needed for this next contest. And that would of course be the dunk contest. And the main problem with this contest actually isn't the commonly held belief that there's only so many dunks you can do. Although this is kind of true, out of all of the complaints surrounding the dunk contest every year, the fact that we're seeing repeat dunks is never one of those complaints. Usually, it's the fact that it's gotten too gimmicky. And with the subpar competition in the contest over the past few years, it's forced a lot of contestants to resort to those gimmicks to make up for the lack of actual hops. Even though Mac McClung brought out his own set of gimmicks, it didn't feel forced or needed, as his eyes were level with the rim on every single attempt. So in my opinion, one of the major issues is that the contest is just lacking real competition. No disrespect to any of the guys that stepped up this year, but watching Andre Jackson Jr. struggle to make a regular ass dunk after failing his first 4 attempts was kind of my breaking point. Then following that up with Buzelis not even recording a dunk and still getting a 40, yeah, that broke my brain. For me, the worst part of the dunk contest is having to watch a bunch of guys who can jump high but have zero hand-eye coordination to pull off the dunks that they're attempting. The league keeps having to drag out Mac McClung every year so that they have at least one guy who can reliably knock down a dunk and keep the show going. So to me, it's not necessarily the gimmicks or lack of innovation with the dunks, it's really just the lack of competition. Let's take 2016 for example. There were definitely gimmicks and definitely dunks that we've already seen before in some version. But there was actual competition. And so the gimmicks didn't feel gimmicky, and the dunks that we've seen in previous contests didn't feel recycled because they had their own flair from 2 competent dunkers. So if this contest is going to be fixed, we're going to need at least one more player who can knock down a dunk on their first attempt. And thankfully, both Ja Morant and Giannis Antetokounmpo have expressed their interest in joining next year after watching a G League player become the first person in league history to three-peat the dunk contest. For the final contest, we have the three-point contest. And actually, the criticism that's most commonly held against the dunk contest actually fits best when talking about the three-point contest. There's just not enough innovation. Despite the best shooters of the game coming from this era, Craig Hodges, a player from the 90s, is the one who still holds the record for most shots made in a round, really highlighting that there just isn't enough growth between eras to truly make this competition feel anything but a rerun of the previous year. Aside from that, we never end up seeing the matchups that we really want. Obviously, with Dame and Steph being the two greatest shooters in the league, many people wanted to see that matchup. In my opinion, the best way to handle this is to implement a system that would compile three-point statistics from around the league leading up to All-Star Weekend, and then use that to create kind of a point system so that players with the best stats are the ones who are being selected for this contest. Or you could also just do nothing, because honestly there really isn't that many complaints about this contest. And finally, we gotta talk about the actual All-Star game itself. And I think everyone knows what I'm gonna say about this one. It's all good, no worries. Just kidding, of course, it is the overall lack of competition. And now, an even worse format to go on top of that. The argument that no one has tried for the All-Star events is kind of worn out. Fans at this point aren't tuning in just because their favorite players are now on the same team. That cool factor has worn off a long time ago. And especially considering we're already coming off a summer of watching LeBron, Steph, and KD all on the same team while actually trying to win something, why would any of us want to tune into the All-Star game to watch a much diminished version of that with 10 times more commercials? Not to mention that a lot of these players are only the best when going up against the best competition. Look at Jokic. Dude's probably one of the best players in the entire world, but he looks about as useful out there as I would. The All-Star game feels like it's only for guys who can jump high or shoot a three, but even those players are only showing off a small fraction of their actual talent. Fans shouldn't be able to go into these games knowing exactly what they're gonna see. But before the game, I already knew Steph was gonna take a bunch of half-court threes and Kat was gonna try and match him, which both ended up happening. The best and most historic games throughout the league's history are the ones that come with surprise and suspense. If you already know how it's gonna go down, who cares about paying attention, or even what the outcome's gonna be? However, I do gotta say, this year felt a bit different. Jaren Jackson Jr. was picking up dudes full court, and it actually kind of felt like there was some resistance while trying to get to the basket. Well, it was like that for the first few minutes at least. After going into the first of what would be thousands of commercial breaks and coming back into a 10-minute Kevin Hart comedy routine, the momentum of the game had completely died. Seriously, watching that game on Sunday night felt like watching an infomercial about a Kevin Hart comedy special featuring a quick basketball game in between Kevin's bits. So with the reports of Adam Silver speaking to the All-Stars before the game about keeping up that intensity, it seems like his own format is the major thing that stopped this game from being even slightly interesting. To quote an anonymous NBA GM, Adam Silver is obsessed with tournaments. And those tournaments have never really proven to actually help the league. The in-season tournament really doesn't feel like it brings anything new, and the play-ins have been a complete failure. The intention for that tournament was to motivate teams from the 9th to 12 seeds not to tank at the end of the year. But since its inception, there's only been 2 teams that have came in as the 9th or 10th seed and actually made it through the play-ins. And surprise, surprise, both of those teams went on to lose in the first round after just 5 games. And once again, it feels like this single elimination tournament for the All-Star game is just as pointless. The only benefit this had was giving the league a bunch more opportunities to run commercials. And the fact that fans are literally begging just to be able to watch the sport they put on their own TV, well, that's not a great sign for where the league's interests currently are. So instead of Adam constantly messing around with the format of how these games are played, try changing the environment. Put these players in positions that they're not familiar with, like doing an outdoor game. Or if you must insist on having a tournament-style format, look at the NHL and their Four Nations Face-Off that was brought in this year to replace the All-Star game in that league, and so far has been an extremely successful event in the eyes of fans. In essence, there's a bunch the league could do to spice up this weekend and make it something that fans actually want to watch. If not, then just get rid of the event altogether, because honestly I would have much rather watched even a Jazz versus Wizards game than the hot garbage that we were given on Sunday night.